Good evening, wisdom-seeking mind. Welcome to a space where rest and learning meet. If you yearn for a life with more clarity, more peace, and a deeper sense of purpose, know that you have found a guide for this journey. The wisdom we seek is often not found in complicated books or grand achievements, but in the simplicity of daily habits, cultivated with patience and intention. For centuries, in silent monasteries around the world, men and women have dedicated themselves to a single art, the art of training the mind and heart. They discovered that wisdom is not a destination, but a consequence. It is the fruit that grows from specific mental and spiritual habits, practiced day after day, habits of mindfulness, kindness, simplicity, and silence. On this 2-hour journey, we won't ask you to do anything. On the contrary, we invite you to relax deeply and allow the essence of these ancestral habits to be absorbed by your mind while you sleep. The state of rest is a state of great receptivity, where the seeds of wisdom can be planted beyond the resistance of our critical thinking, germinating in the fertile soil of our subconscious. Each of the 30 lessons that will follow is the description of one of these habits, not as a rule to be followed, but as a quality to be absorbed. Let the words, the stories, and the pauses wash over your consciousness. Allow the vibration of these teachings to tune your mind to a frequency of greater peace and clarity. You will be learning the art of living more wisely in the most effortless way possible. Breathe deeply. Feel the air coming in as an inspiration of clarity and the air going out as the release of the day's complexity. Before we receive our first lesson, if you feel the call in your heart, affirm your intention for tonight, leaving the words, "I open myself to wisdom," in the comments. Now, just rest. Allow your mind to become a fertile field, ready to receive the seeds that will make you wake up not only rested, but a little wiser. The journey begins now. Night Habit 1. The lesson of the first breath of the day. The wisdom of a day is determined by its first moments. The untrained mind awakens in a jolt, immediately captured by the torrent of worries, the to-do list, the blue light of the cell phone screen. The day begins with reactivity, with haste, with a feeling of already being late. And this energy of agitation, established in the first seconds, often sets the tone for the rest of the day, leaving us exhausted and disconnected at the end of it. The first habit of a monk, the first lesson of a wise life, is to begin the day before the day begins. It is the habit of finding quietude in the silence of the early morning, before the outside world begins to demand our attention. The first act of the day is not to check messages, but to check in with oneself. It is the habit of, with the first conscious breath upon awakening, setting a clear and compassionate intention for the hours that will follow. Imagine 2 archers preparing to shoot at a target. The first archer runs to the shooting line, pulls the bow haphazardly, and throws the arrow in a hurry, hoping that luck will guide it. His arrows scatter all over the place. The second archer, the wise archer, approaches the line calmly. He stops. He breathes. He feels his feet firmly on the ground. He looks at the target, not with anxiety, but with serene focus. He sets in his mind the clear intention to hit the center, and only then he pulls the bow and releases the arrow. It is the intention that guides the arrow to its destination. Our morning intention is what guides the arrow of our day. As you rest tonight, allow this teaching to settle in your mind. Wisdom is not something that is sought only in moments of formal meditation, but in every transition of our lives. And the transition from sleep to wakefulness is the most important of all. By absorbing this habit, you are planting the seed so that tomorrow your awakening will be different. Perhaps at the first sign of consciousness, instead of the impulse to get up, you will remember to pause. The practice to be absorbed is this. Upon waking, before any movement, take a deep, conscious breath. Feel the gift of life filling your lungs, and then with your heart, set a simple intention. It could be, "May I be patient today," or "May I be kind to myself and others today," or "May I find beauty in the small moments today." This simple 2-minute act redefines the day. It transforms it from a series of accidental reactions into a conscious expression of your highest aspiration. The first moment of the day sets its melody. I choose to begin with a note of silence and intention. Before I rise to the world, I first meet myself. My first breath is my first practice. Night habit 2. The lesson of the single bowl of tea. The modern mind is a fragmented mind. We pride ourselves on our ability to multitask. We answer emails while attending a meeting, listen to a podcast while cooking, plan the future while talking to our children. The result of this fragmentation is a state of chronic stress and a feeling that we are never truly where we are. Our mental energy, like a diffuse light, spreads in 1,000 directions, losing all its strength and clarity. We live a lot, but experience little. One of the most central and transformative habits of yearn. Monastic life is the practice of single-pointed attention, the art of doing one thing at a time. For a monk, there is no mundane or unimportant task. Every act, whether sweeping the floor, washing the bowl, or drinking a cup of tea, is treated as the most important event in the universe at that moment. All their attention, their whole being, is dedicated to that single activity. This habit transforms the ordinary into extraordinary and the mundane into sacred. Imagine that your mind is like sunlight. On a cloudy day, the light spreads, diffuse, warming gently, but without great power. But if you take a magnifying glass and focus that same sunlight on a single point, it becomes so powerful that it can start a fire. Our attention works the same way. When we spread it across multiple tasks, it is weak. When we focus it on one thing, it becomes incredibly powerful, bringing clarity, efficiency, and a deep sense of peace. Happiness and wisdom are found not in doing more things, but in being more present in what we are already doing. While you sleep, allow your mind to absorb the beauty and peace of this habit. Let it learn to find rest in the simplicity of a single task. The cure for multitasking exhaustion is the serenity of focused mindfulness. The practice to be absorbed is that of total presence. Visualize yourself now in your mind, sitting in a quiet room. In front of you, a simple bowl of tea. There is no cell phone, no television, no to-do list. There is only you and the tea. Visualize yourself lifting the bowl with both hands. Feel the warmth passing from the ceramic to your skin. Observe the steam rising, dancing in the air. Bring the bowl to your nose and breathe deeply, feeling the subtle, earthy aroma of the leaves. And then, take a small sip. Feel the warm liquid on your tongue, the complexity of its flavor. Swallow and feel the warmth descending through your body. At this moment, there is no past. There is no future. There is only the tea. And in this simple presence, there is a peace and satisfaction that no multitasking can offer. Wherever I am completely there. I do one thing at a time, with all my attention. By transforming the ordinary into the sacred, I find the peace and wisdom of the unified mind. Night habit 3. The lesson of touching the earth. With each step. In our hurried world, the act of walking has become purely functional. We move from one point to another, with our minds almost always in a different place. As we walk to work, we are already in the meeting. As we walk through the house, we are thinking about the shopping list. Our bodies move, but our consciousness is absent. We lose contact with the earth beneath our feet, and with the experience of simply being in our bodies. This disconnection is a source of anxiety and a feeling of unreality, as if we were floating through life without ever landing. One of the most fundamental and beautiful habits of monastic practice is walking meditation. For a monk, each step is an opportunity to practice, to be present, to connect. Walking is not just a means to an end. It is a sacred act in itself. The habit is to bring mindfulness to the sensations of walking, the lifting of one foot, the forward movement, the touch of the heel on the ground, the transfer of weight. By focusing on these simple sensations, the mind that travels in time is brought back to the here and now. Each step becomes an anchor that grounds us in the present moment. This habit teaches us a profound lesson of humility and connection. With each step, we touch the earth. We remember that we are sustained by this planet, that it is our home and our foundation. The act of walking consciously becomes a silent dialogue with the earth, an expression of gratitude. It heals the wound of our alienation from nature and reminds us that we are part of something much larger. A mind that learns to walk with this reverence is a mind that learns to live with more peace and stability, because it knows that it is always treading on sacred ground. While you rest, allow the essence of this habit to be absorbed by your body. We cannot walk now, but we can cultivate the same quality of grounding and presence. The wisdom of touching the earth is available to us, even in immobility. The practice to be absorbed is that of the grounded body. Bring your attention to the parts of your body that are in contact with the bed. Feel your heels, your calves, your thighs, your back, your shoulders. Feel the weight of your body being fully supported. Let go completely into this support. Imagine that the bed is the earth itself, firm, stable, and unconditionally welcoming. With each exhalation, feel yourself sinking a little more into this support, releasing all tension, all the need to hold on. Now, bring your attention to your feet. Even at rest, feel the energy in them. Imagine that the soles of your feet are touching soft, fertile soil. With each inhalation, imagine that you are absorbing the calm and stable energy of the earth through your feet. With each exhalation, release any excess anxious energy from your mind back to the earth, where it can be transformed and composted. Feel this connection, this exchange. You are being sustained. You are rooted. You are home. Every step can be a meditation. Every moment of rest can be an act of grounding. By touching the earth with my consciousness, I find my stability and my peace. I am home, here and now, breathing in this lesson. Night Habit 4. The lesson of unspoken words. We live in a culture of constant expression. We are encouraged to have an opinion on everything, to share every thought, to fill every moment of silence with words. Our minds become noisy, filled with internal debates, rehearsed conversations, the residue of gossip and useless talk. This compulsion to speak, both externally and internally, drains our mental energy, prevents us from listening deeply to ourselves and others, and creates a noisy environment that makes wisdom difficult to hear. One of the most powerful and perhaps most challenging habits cultivated in a monastery is that of noble silence. Noble silence is not just the act of not speaking, it is the conscious practice of abstaining from speech that is not true, kind, beneficial, and timely. It is an intentional silence that creates an inner space for clarity, introspection, and peace. It is the recognition that often silence is the wisest and most compassionate answer. There is a story told of a young monk who, eager to demonstrate his knowledge, spoke incessantly. During community meetings, he offered his opinions on every subject, interrupted others, and filled the air with his theories. His master, instead of reprimanding him, adopted the practice of silence. Whenever the young man spoke, the master simply listened, with a calm and attentive presence. The master's silence was so profound, so full of space and peace, that it began to have an effect on the young man. He began to hear the echo of his own words, to perceive his own agitation. Little by little, he began to speak less and listen more, discovering that wisdom was not in his own words, but in the silence that contained them. The habit of noble silence teaches us the art of using words as a precious tool, not as a filler, for emptiness. Before speaking, the trained mind asks, is what I am about to say true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If the answer is no to any of these questions, it chooses silence. This habit, when internalized, calms our inner dialogue. We stop arguing with ourselves, stop judging ourselves with harsh words, stop fueling the fire of anxiety with catastrophic narratives. We learn to rest in the silence. As you rest, allow your being to be bathed in this lesson of silence. Imagine, all the words you heard and spoke today are like leaves carried by a river. Watch them float away, disappearing around the river bend, leaving behind only the gentle sound of flowing water, and finally, silence. Feel the silence in your room. Feel it not as an absence of sound, but as a positive presence, an energy that nourishes and heals. Let this silence permeate your body, your mind, your heart. If verbal thoughts arise, don't struggle with them. Just see them as small ripples on the surface of a deep, silent lake. Let your attention sink below the ripples, to the still quietness of the depths. This is your refuge. This is the cradle of wisdom. In the quiet, clarity emerges. I release the need to fill the space with words. I rest in the peace and wisdom of noble silence, allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly Habit 5. The lesson of the bowl's worth of wealth. Our society teaches us that the path to wisdom and happiness is one of accumulation. We seek to accumulate wealth, knowledge, experiences, relationships. We believe that the more we have, the more complete and happy we will be. This pursuit of more keeps us in a constant state of desire and dissatisfaction. Our mind becomes an overcrowded warehouse, full of worries about how to obtain what we don't have and how to protect what we already have. This complexity, this weight, is a great obstacle to the wise mind, which is, by nature, simple, light, and free. The monastic habit of simplicity and contentment offers us a radically different path. Life in a monastery is a study of the essential. A monk might possess only a few robes, an alms bowl, and a few books, and yet he can experience a richness and freedom that the richest man in the world might never know. The lesson is not that possessions are bad, but that attachment to them is a source of suffering. Wisdom lies in discovering that true wealth doesn't come from having much, but from needing little. The mind that needs little is a free mind. It is not constantly anxious about the future, nor lamenting the past. It finds its wealth in the simplicity of the present moment. Contentment, or santuti, is the habit of recognizing and appreciating the abundance that is already here. It is a wealth that no one can take from us, for it does not depend on external conditions. It is the wealth of a peaceful mind. Imagine a ship being prepared for a long voyage. A foolish captain fills it with every kind of cargo imaginable, fearing that something might be lacking. The ship becomes so heavy that it can barely leave the harbor. It sails slowly, is vulnerable to any storm, and consumes an immense amount of energy. The wise captain, on the other hand, takes only what is absolutely essential for the journey. His ship is light, agile, and fast. He sails the seas with ease and joy, free from the weight of excess. Our mind is this ship. The habit of simplicity is the act of throwing overboard all the unnecessary cargo of desires and attachments, so that we can navigate life with lightness and freedom. As you rest, allow your mind to absorb the beauty and luxury of simplicity. There is nothing you need to acquire tonight. There is nowhere you need to go. Everything essential is already here. The practice to absorb is that of feeling the sufficiency of now. Bring your attention to your breath. You have enough air to breathe. Feel your body. You have a body that sustains you. Feel your consciousness. You have the capacity to be present. Recognize this fundamental wealth. Feel the peace that comes from needing nothing more than this. Let go of the desire for the next moment, the next experience. Rest in the simple wealth of being here, now. Nothing is lacking, absolutely nothing. True wealth lies not in having more, but in needing less. I release the burden of desire and find joy in simplicity. In contentment with what is already here, find freedom and wisdom. Carrying this lesson, nightly. Habit 6. The lesson of the silent feast. In our fast-paced world, eating has often become a mechanical and unconscious act. We eat in front of screens, standing up while working, gulping down food without truly savoring it. The meal, which should be a moment of nourishment and pleasure, becomes just another task on our list. In doing so, we lose a daily opportunity to practice mindfulness and gratitude, and we fill our bodies with food, but our minds and hearts remain hungry for presence. The habit of mindful eating, as practiced in monasteries, transforms each meal into a profound meditation. Often, meals are eaten in silence, not as a punitive rule, but as an invitation to pay full attention to the experience. The habit is to honor the food, to acknowledge the vast web of life that brought it to our bowl. It is the practice of using all our senses to experience the food, its colors, its textures, its aromas, its flavors. This practice cultivates gratitude, calms the mind, and teaches us to find satisfaction in simplicity. The lesson of this habit is that of interconnectedness. When we look deeply at a simple grain of rice in our bowl, we can see the entire universe. We can see the sun, the rain, and the earth that nourished it. We can see the work of the farmer who planted and harvested it. We can see the hands of the person who cooked it. We can see the entire chain of life, of us, which we are only a part. A simple grain of rice contains the cosmos. Eating with this perception cures us of the illusion that we are separate beings and fills us with a feeling of humility and reverence for life. As you rest, you can absorb the essence of this habit of gratitude for nourishment. Your body, at this moment, is digesting and assimilating the nutrients from the food you ate today, transforming them into life, into energy, into healing. It is a silent miracle. The practice to absorb is one of gratitude for nourishment. Bring to your mind, lightly, the image of one of the meals you ate today. You don't need to analyze what it was. Just connect with the feeling of having been nourished. Now in your mind, take a journey backward. Thank the hands that prepared your food. Thank the people who transported it, who sold it at the store. Thank the farmer who worked under the sun and the rain. Thank the fertile earth, the rain that fell from the sky and the sun that offered its energy. Feel how you are connected to this vast network of work, nature, and life. Your well-being depends on countless factors and beings. Feel a wave of gratitude for this interconnectedness. And finally, feel gratitude for your own body, for its incredible wisdom in transforming this food into you. Let this feeling of deep gratitude be the final nourishment of your day, nourishing your mind and heart as you sleep. Every meal is a sacred feast. By eating with gratitude, I acknowledge my connection with all life. I nourish my body with food and my mind with presence and wisdom. Resting in this lesson. Nightly Habit 7. The lesson of the sky that welcomes the clouds. The untrained mind has a struggling relationship with its own thoughts. When a thought of anxiety arises, we try to push it away. When a painful memory appears, we contract and resist. When a thought of self-criticism attacks us, we believe it and feel diminished. We identify completely with our mental traffic, believing that we are our thoughts. This fusion with thoughts, this lack of space, is the main cause of stress and mental agitation. We feel like a small leaf being carried by a river of uncontrollable thoughts. The habit that a monk diligently cultivates is that of creating space between himself and his thoughts. It is the habit of learning to be the silent witness of the mind, instead of being the actor in the drama. Wisdom lies in recognizing that thoughts are just that, thoughts. They are impersonal and transient mental events, like clouds floating in the sky. They are not facts, and more importantly, they are not who we are. We are the sky, not the clouds. Imagine the nature of the sky. It is vast, open, spacious, and fundamentally peaceful. Clouds of all kinds pass through it. White and fluffy clouds on a summer day, gray and heavy clouds before the rain, dark and threatening clouds during a storm. But no matter how dramatic or frightening the clouds are, they never stain, scratch, or damage the sky. The sky allows them all to come and go, without resistance and without attachment. Its nature remains unperturbed. Our pure consciousness, our wise mind, is like this sky. Cultivating the habit of being the sky is the practice of non-reactivity. It is learning to observe a thought of anger arise, without the need to act on it. It is observing a wave of sadness pass, without drowning in it. It is observing a thought of self-criticism appear and simply seeing it as a dark and transient cloud, not as the truth about who we are. This ability to observe without identifying is the source of true freedom and unshakable wisdom. As you lie down, allow your mind to become this vast night sky. The practice to absorb is this. Simply rest as the open space of your consciousness, and if a thought or feeling arises, see it as a cloud floating through this vast sky. Don't try to change the cloud. Don't try to get rid of it. Just observe it. Notice its shape, its color, its speed, and observe how, by its own nature, it moves and eventually dissolves back into the sky. If a cloud of worry about tomorrow appears, just note, a cloud of worry, and continue to rest as the sky. If a cloud of memory from the past arises, just note, a cloud of memory, and remain as the sky. You don't need to do anything. The sky does nothing for the clouds to pass. They simply pass. Feel the peace and power that comes from not being the cloud, but the sky that welcomes everything with spacious calm. I am not my thoughts. I am the sky through which they pass. By resting as spacious and silent consciousness, I find the freedom and wisdom not to be disturbed by the storms of the mind. Nightly Habit 8. The lesson of the master in every face. In our daily lives, we tend to categorize people. There are friends, strangers, bosses, family, and of course, difficult people. We open ourselves to some and close ourselves to others, believing that learning and wisdom come only from sources we admire or consider wise. This selective mentality greatly limits our growth. We close ourselves off to the infinite learning opportunities that life presents to us every moment. One of the most transformative habits of a wise mind, like that of a monk, is to see every person and every situation as a potential teacher. Wisdom is not only in sacred books or in the speeches of a master, it is hidden in every interaction, waiting to be discovered by a humble and open mind. The person who irritates us becomes our greatest teacher of patience. The mistake we make becomes our most honest teacher of humility. The child playing in the street becomes our teacher of presence and simple joy. When we cultivate this habit, the whole world transforms into our monastery. In the Buddhist tradition, there is the inspiring story of Sudhana, a young seeker who traveled throughout India in search of enlightenment. On his pilgrimage, he learned not only from great sages and meditation masters, but from people of all classes and professions. He received profound teachings from a doctor, a boatman, a courtesan, a perfumer, and even a child. Sudhana had such an open heart that he could see wisdom in every person he met, recognizing that every living being contained a unique piece of the puzzle of truth. This habit of universal learning cures us of arrogance and judgment. It invites us to approach each encounter with genuine curiosity instead of with prejudices. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with this person?" the wise mind asks, "What is this person teaching me about myself? What part of me is being triggered? What is the lesson here?" This change in questioning transforms conflict situations into opportunities for self-knowledge. As you rest, allow this quality of openness to settle into your being. The practice to absorb is one of compassionate reinterpretation. Remember a difficult or unpleasant interaction you had today or recently. Feel the habitual reaction of frustration or judgment. Now, let go of that reaction. Instead, look at the situation through the eyes of Sudhana. Ask with gentle curiosity, what was the hidden master in this situation? What lesson was life trying to offer me through this experience? Perhaps the lesson was about setting boundaries, or about impermanence, or about compassion for someone who is suffering. Don't look for a definitive answer. Just the act of asking the question with an open heart is wisdom itself. Every person is my teacher. Every moment is a lesson. With a humble and open heart, I transform the world into my monastery and find wisdom in every encounter. Breathing in this lesson. Nightly Habit 9. The lesson of sweeping the floor of the mind. We usually end our day the same way we live it, with a cluttered mind. We carry into bed all the residue of the day, the conversations, the worries, the triumphs, the defeats, the plans for tomorrow. Our minds resemble the floor of a party hall after the event, strewn with confetti, dirty dishes, and unfinished conversations. It's impossible to find deep, true rest amidst this mental clutter. We fall asleep in a state of disarray and wake up with the same weary feeling. An essential habit in a monk's routine is the conscious closing of the day, just as he physically sweeps the temple floor, leaving it clean and ready for the new day. He cultivates the habit of sweeping the floor of his own mind. This mental cleansing ritual involves two essential practices: release and gratitude. Releasing means consciously letting go of the day's events, acknowledging their impermanence, not clinging to the attachments of successes nor the resentments of failures. Gratitude is the act of deliberately focusing the mind, before sleep, on one or two things for which one is grateful, sealing the day with a note of contentment. Imagine your mind is a chalkboard. Throughout the day, it's been filled with all sorts of writings, drawings, equations, and doodles, some beautiful, others messy. The habit of sweeping the mind is the act of, with a soft eraser, completely cleaning this chalkboard. We don't hate the writings, nor do we cling to them. We simply acknowledge that their time has passed. The day is done. Clearing the chalkboard creates a space of silence and potential, allowing sleep to be a true restart, not just a continuation of the previous day. The practice to absorb tonight is to familiarize yourself with the sensation of this mental cleansing. Let your mind gently recall the events of your day, the meetings, the conversations, the tasks. See them as the writings on the chalkboard. Now, with a long, gentle exhale, visualize a soft felt eraser, slowly passing over the chalkboard of your mind. Watch as all the marks, all the words, all the images of the day are gently erased. Feel the chalkboard becoming clean, dark, empty. Feel the peace and relief that come with this space. Now, in this clean and silent space, the habit invites us to make a single, beautiful mark, the mark of gratitude. From your entire day, choose a single thing, however small, for which you feel genuinely grateful. It could be the warmth of the sun, a kind word, a tasty meal, the simple fact of being alive. Visualize this single thing as a small, bright star in the center of your now clean mental chalkboard. Let this be the last image, the last feeling in your consciousness before surrendering to sleep. At the end of the day, I sweep the floor of my mind. I release what has passed and embrace gratitude for what was. With a clear mind and a grateful heart, I prepare for a rest that renews the soul, allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly habit. 10. The lesson of returning home to the body. The mind is a time traveler. It spends most of its time in the past, ruminating on memories and regrets, or in the future, weaving plans and anxieties. It rarely stays home. And what is home? Home is the present moment, and the gateway to the present moment is always and only our body. While the mind may wander through universes of fantasy, the body is always, undeniably, here and now. This disconnect between a wandering mind and a forgotten body is one of the main causes of our feelings of rootlessness and stress. The fundamental habit that supports all others in monastic life is that of repeatedly returning awareness home, to the body. Monks learn to be deeply embodied, to inhabit their bodies with mindful and continuous attention. They feel their breath, feel their feet touching the ground, feel their hands as they work. This is not an esoteric exercise. It's the most basic and powerful practice for anchoring the mind and finding peace. A thought cannot hijack us if a part of our attention remains firmly anchored in the physical reality of our body. The body is our most honest teacher. It doesn't lie. It tells us when we are tense, when we are relaxed, when we are tired. Wisdom lies not in ignoring the body or fighting against it, but in learning to listen to its silent language. The habit of inhabiting the body heals the dissociation of modern life. It grounds us, calms us, and brings us back to the only reality that truly exists, this exact moment as it is. As you lie down, this is the perfect time to practice returning home. Your mind may have traveled to 1,000 places today. Now, it's time to come home. The practice to absorb is that of merging with the physical sensations of the present moment. Bring your attention to the sensation of your body's weight. Feel gravity, this constant and reliable force that keeps you connected to the earth. Feel the pressure points where your body touches the bed. Surrender completely to this support. This is your home, your foundation. Now, bring your attention to the sensation of your body's warmth. Feel the vital energy that animates you, the gentle warmth under the covers. This is the fire of your home, your vitality. Then, feel the gentle flow of your breath. Feel the movement of air entering and leaving, the rising and falling of your abdomen. This is the river flowing through your home, the flow of life. Rest your attention on these primordial sensations, weight, warmth, and flow. There's nothing to analyze, nothing to understand, just feel. If the mind tries to wander again to the past or to the future, with the gentleness of one calling a child back home, guide your attention back to these sensations. The body is your anchor in the ocean of time. With each return, your anchor deepens. With each moment you spend at home, in your body, peace becomes more familiar, more natural. My mind is a traveler, but my body is my home. Tonight, I return home, I anchor my consciousness in the reality of my sensations and find the deep peace of simply being here, carrying this lesson. Nightly habit. 11. The lesson of the sun that warms first. The world constantly asks us to be compassionate, kind, and caring towards others, and this is a noble aspiration. However, we often try to offer others what we don't have for ourselves. We try to give water from a well that is dry. The result is exhaustion, resentment, and a kindness that feels like a duty, not a joy. We injure ourselves in an attempt to heal others, and our help becomes fragile and unsustainable. The first habit of a wise and compassionate heart, as cultivated by a monk, is to begin at the source. It is the practice of loving kindness, metta, directed towards oneself. This is not an act of selfishness, but of profound wisdom. It is the recognition that we cannot truly love and care for others sustainably if we don't first learn to love and care for ourselves. A heart that is harsh and critical of itself will have difficulty offering genuine kindness to others. A heart that learns to bathe in its own warmth and acceptance, on the other hand, becomes an overflowing source of kindness for the world. Imagine two travelers on a cold desert night. The first, trying to warm others, gives away his only small blanket and spends the night shivering, unhappy, and ultimately unable to help anyone. The second traveler, the wise one, begins by lighting a small, steady fire for himself. This fire warms him, comforts him, and gives him strength. And because of his fire, he not only stays warm, but his fire becomes a source of light and warmth for all the other travelers who approach. Our ability to be good to ourselves is this fire. The habit of cultivating self-loving kindness is the foundation of all spiritual life. It is what gives us the resilience to face difficulties and the generosity of spirit to rejoice with others. It is the balm that heals our own wounds of inadequacy and self-criticism. As you rest, allow the warmth of this teaching to envelop you. The practice to absorb is that of kindling this inner fire. Place one hand, or both, over your heart. Feel the physical contact as an act of friendship. Breathe deeply, imagining that your breath is the breath that rekindles the embers in your chest. Now, begin to offer yourself, silently and sincerely, the classic phrases of loving kindness. Repeat gently, "May I be at peace." Let the feeling of peace bathe you. May I be safe and protected from any harm. Feel a cloak of safety around you. May I be healthy and strong. Feel the vitality in your body. May I live with ease and well-being. Feel the burden of effort dissolving. Continue to repeat these phrases, not like a robot, but with a genuine feeling, as if you were cherishing the most precious part of yourself. Let your own heart be the first to receive the warmth of your kindness. To care for others, I must first care for myself. I kindle in my heart the fire of loving kindness for myself. By warming myself in my own kindness, I become a source of warmth for the world. Resting in this lesson. Nightly habit 12. The lesson of letting go of the burning ember. One of the most destructive mental habits that robs us of peace and wisdom is that of clinging to grievances and resentments. Someone hurts us, and instead of processing the pain and moving on, we become obsessed with the injustice. We replay the scene in our minds, fuel our anger with arguments and justifications, and keep the wound open with the poison of bitterness. This habit keeps us chained to the past and to the person who hurt us, filling our minds with toxicity and making rest impossible. The habit of a monk, cultivated daily, is the practice of forgiveness, not as an act of weakness, but as an act of immense wisdom and self-liberation. The central lesson is this: holding on to resentment is like grasping a burning ember in your hand, intending to throw it at someone else. While we wait for the perfect opportunity, who is getting burned? We are. Forgiveness is the intelligent act of recognizing that the ember is burning our own hand and deciding, for our own sake, to open our hand and let it go. This teaching does not ask us to forget what happened or to say that the wrong was right. It does not demand reconciliation. Forgiveness, in monastic practice, is an internal process. It is the act of releasing our own heart from the poison of anger and resentment. It is a declaration of emotional independence. It is saying, "Your action was harmful, but I refuse to allow it to continue to harm me, day after day, in my own mind. I choose my peace over my anger. I choose my freedom over remaining chained to you. The practice of forgiveness is one of the greatest acts of kindness we can offer ourselves. The energy that was consumed to keep the anger alive becomes available for healing, for joy, and for the present. We stop giving the person who hurt us the power to control our inner state. We take our power back. Allow the liberating wisdom of this habit to be absorbed by your mind tonight. The practice is to feel and release the ember. Bring to mind, gently, a grievance or resentment you have been carrying. Allow yourself to feel just for a moment the pain, the heat, the burning that this resentment causes in your body and in your heart. This is the ember in your hand. Recognize how it hurts you. Now, with a clear intention to free yourself, visualize your hand slowly opening. See your fingers stretching, releasing the grip. And then, simply, let the ember fall. Watch it roll away and extinguish itself with a hiss, turning into harmless ashes. Feel the immediate relief in your hand. Feel the coolness, the absence of pain. Feel the space that has opened in your heart, where there was once the burning of anger. Breathe in this space of freedom, and offer yourself a word of compassion. I release myself. Holding on to resentment is burning myself with a burning ember. Forgiveness is the wise act of letting go of the pain. For the sake of my own peace, I open my hand and free myself. Nightly habit. 13. The lesson of the river that enriches itself by flowing. In our culture, we are often taught to live from a mentality of scarcity. We believe that our resources, our time, our energy, our affection, our money, are limited and must be carefully guarded. This belief leads us to a state of contraction. We hesitate to offer help, for fear of running out of energy. We measure our kindness, afraid that it will not be reciprocated. We live with our hands closed, trying to protect and accumulate the little we believe we have. This mentality of poverty, this fear of not having enough, is one of the greatest obstacles to wisdom and happiness, because it keeps us trapped in a small and anxious world of me and mine. A contracted heart cannot be a wise heart. The habit that a monk cultivates daily to dissolve this contraction is that of generosity, or dana. In monastic life, generosity is the foundation of everything. Monks depend on the generosity of the community for their daily sustenance, and in return offer the most precious gift they have, the teachings of wisdom. This constant exchange teaches a profound lesson. True wealth lies not in accumulating, but in circulating. The habit of generosity is not about giving until there is nothing left. It is about cultivating a spirit of abundance, the understanding that the more we give, the more we connect to the flow of life, and the richer we become in joy and meaning. The mind that accumulates is like a swamp. The water that enters never leaves, and over time, it becomes stagnant, murky, and lifeless. The generous heart, on the other hand, is like a river that flows. It receives water from the mountains and freely gives it to the ocean, nourishing everything in its path. The river does not worry about losing its water as it flows. The very flow is its nature, its vitality. By participating in this cycle, it remains always fresh, clear, and full of energy. The wisdom of generosity is to become like the river, understanding that the act of giving does not diminish us, but enriches us by allowing us to participate in the great flow of interconnection. As you rest, allow your mind to absorb the expansive energy of generosity. You don't need to give anything physical. The most powerful practice of dana is that of the heart. It's the habit of offering mentally your good wishes, your forgiveness, and your compassion. The practice to be absorbed is that of inner giving. Bring your attention to the space of your heart. First, offer yourself the gift of your own kindness. Now think of someone, a loved one, or even a stranger, and offer them your sincerest wish for well-being. In your mind say, I offer you my wish that you be happy. May you be free from suffering. Feel the small expansion in your chest as you do this. Next, think of someone with whom you've had difficulties. See if it's possible to offer this person the gift of your forgiveness, not for them, but for yourself. Say, I offer you my forgiveness, so that my own heart may be free. And finally, offer the entire world the gift of your peace. Imagine the calmness you feel now spreading. like sunlight, touching all beings. I offer my peace to all beings. Feel how, in giving, your heart hasn't emptied, but has become fuller, more alive, wiser. Wisdom flows from an open heart. I practice the habit of generosity, knowing that, in giving, I become like a river, always full and in motion. In each act of giving, I find my own richness. Breathing in this lesson. Nightly Habit 14. The lesson of the eye. 1,000 flavors. Feast. One of the most subtle poisons that prevents the blossoming of wisdom in our hearts is the habit of comparison. In a hyper-connected world, we spend our days looking at the lives of others. We see their successes, their joys, their achievements, and instead of feeling inspired, we often feel a pang of envy, of inadequacy. The mind begins to whisper, "His life is better than mine. I'll never have that. I'm falling behind." This habit of constant measurement puts us in a state of scarcity and competition, blinding us to the beauty and value of our own unique journey. Wisdom cannot blossom in a heart that feels poor and competitive. To heal the heart of this poison, the monks cultivate the habit of mudita, appreciative joy. Mudita is the deliberate practice of feeling genuine joy at the happiness and good fortune of others. It is the direct antidote to envy. It is born from the wisdom that happiness is not a limited resource. Another person's joy takes nothing away from us. On the contrary, a heart that learns to rejoice in the joy of others has access to an infinite source of happiness. It can nourish itself not only from its own achievements, but from the achievements of all humanity. It's a shift from a scarcity mindset to one of unlimited abundance. Imagine you are at a great feast. Each guest at the table has received a different, unique, and delicious dish. The person with the comparative mind spends the whole night looking at the dishes of others. His dish looks tastier. Why did she receive a larger portion? Consumed by envy and a sense of injustice, she barely touches her own food, and at the end of the feast, goes home hungry and unhappy. The person with the mudita mind, however, savors their own dish deeply, appreciating every nuance of its flavor. And at the same time, she smells the wonderful aromas coming from her neighbor's dishes. She looks around, sees the smiles on people's faces as they eat, and feels happy for them. She rejoices in the fact that everyone is enjoying such a wonderful meal. At the end of the night, she goes home doubly nourished, by her own food and by the shared joy of the entire feast. Life is this feast. The habit of appreciative joy teaches us to savor our own dish and to delight in the aroma of others. It heals us from the wound of isolation and connects us with collective happiness. As you fall asleep, allow your heart to absorb the sweetness of this habit. The practice is one of joyful connection. Bring to mind someone you know who is experiencing a moment of happiness. It could be a friend who landed a new job, a relative who is in love, or even a child you saw laughing in the park. Instead of observing from afar, try to connect with this person's joy. Imagine how that happiness feels in her body. Feel the lightness, the warmth, the expansion, and then, from a sincere place in your heart, celebrate with her. Silently say, "What joy! I feel happy for you. May your happiness grow and flourish." Feel how, in doing so, an echo of that same joy resonates in your own heart. You are not diminished. You are enriched. Another being's joy is not a threat. It's an opportunity. I celebrate the happiness of others, and in doing so, I multiply my own. My heart nourishes itself at the feast of shared joy, allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly Habit 15. The lesson of the tree that dances with the wind. We live in a culture that idolizes speed and instant gratification. We want everything now. We get frustrated with slow traffic, with the internet that takes too long to load, with people who don't meet our expectations at our pace. This chronic impatience is a state of constant war with reality. It keeps us in a state of irritation, tension, and reactivity. An impatient mind is like the surface of water agitated by a relentless wind. It cannot reflect the clarity of the sky. Wisdom cannot blossom in a heart that doesn't know how to wait. The habit of patience, or kshanti, is one of the central virtues cultivated in monastic life. Patience, in the Buddhist view, is not passive resignation or tedious waiting. It is an active and powerful quality of mind. It is the inner strength to remain calm and balanced in the face of adversity, delay, or provocation. It is the wisdom of accepting the natural rhythm of things, recognizing that not everything can or should happen according to our personal agenda. Patience is the space we create in our minds so that life can unfold without our anxious interference. It is an act of profound trust. Imagine a young tree, a thin, rigid sprout. When a strong wind blows, because it is inflexible, it resists with all its might until, eventually, it breaks. Now imagine a large, old tree, like an oak or a willow. It has survived countless storms, not by being more rigid, but by being wiser. Its roots are deep, giving it stability, and its branches are strong, yet flexible. When the strong wind blows, the great tree does not fight against it. It bends, it dances with the wind. Its branches yield, allowing the force of the storm to pass through it. And when the storm ends, the tree is still standing, perhaps with a few fewer leaves, but fundamentally intact and even stronger. Patience is this combination of deep roots and flexibility. Cultivating patience is learning to be like the great tree. It is developing deep roots in our practice of presence so that we are not blown down by the winds of difficulty, and it is developing the mental flexibility to bend before the inevitable instead of breaking in resistance. As you rest, practice cultivating this flexible strength. Bring to mind a small situation from your day that caused you impatience. It could be a cue, a small mistake, a weight. Feel the energy of impatience in your body, the tension, the contraction, the acceleration. Now, visualize yourself as the great tree. With each inhale, feel your roots deepening into the earth, into the stability of your bed. With each exhale, feel your branches becoming more flexible. Imagine the wind of impatience blowing through you. Instead of resisting, allow yourself to sway with it. Soften the tension. Create space for the feeling of impatience, observing it without reacting, until it loses its strength and the wind calms down. You remain rooted and at peace. I do not fight against the wind. I dance with it. With roots deep in presence and flexible branches of acceptance, I cultivate patience. In the tranquil strength of the tree, I find my wisdom. Carrying this lesson. Nightly, Habit 16. The lesson of the body as a sacred temple. In our pursuit of wisdom, we often focus exclusively on the mind, treating the body as an accessory, or worse, as an obstacle. We neglect it, push it beyond its limits, criticize it for its imperfections, and become irritated by its aches and pains. This attitude of separation and disrespect towards the body creates a fundamental disharmony in our being. A mind seeking peace cannot blossom in a body that is treated as an enemy or a slave. Wisdom is not just a mental concept. It needs a healthy and balanced home to inhabit. The monastic habit of caring for the body sees it in a completely different way. The body is not seen as a source of problems, but as a sacred temple. It is the precious vehicle that allows us to practice, learn, and awaken in this life. It is not my body in the sense of a possession, but a temporary gift that must be cared for with respect, gratitude, and wisdom. This care is not an act of vanity, but an act of spiritual responsibility. It includes nourishing the body with healthy food, giving it the rest it needs, moving it consciously, and listening to its signals attentively. The lesson of this habit is that the mind and body are not two separate things, but two sides of the same coin. A stressed mind creates a tense body. A neglected body creates an agitated mind. On the other hand, a body that is lovingly cared for sends messages of safety and well-being to the brain, creating the perfect conditions for the mind to quiet down and wisdom to blossom. Caring for the body is a form of meditation in action. It is the practice of bringing the same quality of mindfulness and kindness that we cultivate on our meditation cushion to our most basic physical needs. As you lie down tonight, you are already practicing one of the most important forms of body care, rest. Let's deepen this habit with a practice of blessing and gratitude for your temple. Let your mind become a gentle guardian, visiting each part of your body not with judgment, but with appreciation and wishes for well-being. Begin by bringing your attention to your feet. Think of all the journeys they have carried you on. Send them a feeling of gratitude and a silent blessing. May my feet be healthy and at peace. Now, move up to your legs, which give you the strength to stand and move in the world. Offer them your gratitude and your blessing. May my legs be strong and at peace. Continue upwards to your torso, the center of your being. Thank your organs, which work tirelessly, night and day, to keep you alive. May my body be a place of balance and health. Bring your attention to your arms and hands, the tools with which you touch the world, create, and care. May my hands be instruments of kindness. Finally, bring your attention to your head, the home of your senses and your mind. May my mind find clarity and rest in peace. My body is the sacred temple that houses my consciousness. I treat it with respect, care, and gratitude. By honoring my body, I create a harmonious home for wisdom to flourish. Resting in this lesson, Nightly Habit 17, the lesson of the wave that remembers the ocean. One of the deepest and most subtle habits that a monk's mind cultivates is the contemplation of interconnectedness. In our daily experience, we feel like separate and independent beings. We believe that there is a solid I here, inside my skin, and an other out there. This perception of separation is the root of many of our problems: fear, loneliness, greed, conflict. If I am separate from you, then I need to compete with you for resources. I need to protect myself from you, and your pain is not my problem. This fragmented worldview is a constant source of suffering. Wisdom, however, reveals a very different truth. It shows us that separation is an illusion. Reality is a vast and intricate web of interdependence, where nothing exists by itself. The habit of contemplating this truth dissolves the illusion of the separate self and heals us from the wound of loneliness. We begin to see ourselves not as islands, but as part of a vast continent of life. The most classic metaphor for this teaching is that of the wave and the ocean. Look at a wave in the sea. It has an individual form, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It rises, reaches its peak, and breaks on the beach. From its own perspective, the wave may feel very alone, separated from all the other waves. It may compare itself to the larger waves, fear the rocks ahead, and lament its own imminent death. This is the perspective of the ego, of the separate self. But what is the deeper truth of the wave? Its truth is that it is made of water. It is not separate from the ocean. It is an expression of the ocean itself. It was never born and will never die. It is, and always has been, part of the vastness of the water. We are like the waves. Our personalities, our bodies, our life stories, this is our wave form, temporary and individual. But our essence, our consciousness, our fundamental nature is the ocean. We are connected to all other beings, to all of life, in the same way that every drop of water in the ocean is connected to all the others. Cultivating wisdom is the habit of repeatedly reminding ourselves that we are the ocean, even as we live our lives as a wave. As you drift to the edge of sleep, allow this teaching to cradle you. The practice is one of dissolving boundaries. Feel your breath. The air you inhale is not yours. It was exhaled by a tree, by another person. The air you exhale mixes with the atmosphere to be breathed by others. Your breath is an act of constant communion with the world. Now feel your body. It is made of the food you have eaten, the water you have drunk, elements that came from the earth. Your body is, literally, the planet itself, manifested in this form for a time. Now, feel your consciousness, the silent space where your thoughts arise. Is it separate from the consciousness of others, or is it part of a larger field of consciousness, like the ocean from which all waves emerge? Let go of the identity of the wave, with its small worries and fears, and simply rest in your oceanic nature, vast, deep, peaceful, and connected to all. I am a wave, but my true nature is the ocean. I release the illusion of separation and rest in my deep connection with all life. In the vastness of the ocean, I find wisdom and peace. Nightly Habit 18. The lesson of words that build bridges. Words hold immense power. They can be bombs that heal or weapons that wound. In our daily lives, we often use words carelessly. We speak impulsively, engage in gossip, use sarcasm to protect ourselves, or utter harsh words in moments of anger. Each of these verbal actions creates ripples in the world and, crucially, within ourselves. At night, when the mind quiets, we are often haunted by the echo of our own words, feeling regret, guilt, or the turmoil of a conflict we ourselves created or fueled. A wise mind knows that inner peace is intrinsically linked to how we communicate. The monastic habit of right speech, or samavaka, is a mindful practice applied to communication. It's not a code of censorship, but a deep understanding of the power of words. A monk learns to use speech as a tool to build bridges, not walls. Before speaking, the trained mind cultivates the habit of passing their words through 4 gates. The first gate is truth. Is what I am about to say true and accurate? The second is kindness. Are these words gentle and kind, or harsh and hurtful? The third is benefit. Will this speech be helpful to me and others? Will it bring more peace or more conflict? And the fourth is right time. Is this the appropriate time to say this? If the words cannot pass through all 4 gates, the monk chooses noble silence, knowing that silence is often wiser and more healing than careless speech. Imagine that each word you utter is a seed you plant in the garden of the world and in the garden of your own mind. Words of anger and criticism are seeds of thorns, which grow and create an environment of pain and distrust. Words of truth, kindness, and encouragement are seeds of flowers, which grow and create an environment of beauty, trust, and connection. The habit of right speech is to become a conscious sower of flowers. As you rest, allow your mind to absorb the healing energy of this habit. This is not about blaming yourself for past words, but about planting the intention of more healing. Communication for the future. The practice to be absorbed is one of purification and intention. Kindly remember a conversation or verbal interaction you had today. Simply observe it, without judgment. Note the quality of the words used. Now visualize a stream of clear water flowing through that memory, washing away any residue of harshness, dishonesty, or harm. Let the scene be purified. Now, plant the seed for tomorrow. Formulate a clear and gentle intention in your heart. You can silently repeat, tomorrow. May I use my words to heal, not to hurt. May my speech be a source of truth and kindness. May I build bridges of understanding. Feel how this intention already brings a quality of peace to your mind. A mind committed to harmony is itself more harmonious. My words are seeds. I choose to plant flowers, not thorns. By cultivating the habit of right speech, I create peace in my relationships and in my own heart. Breathing in this lesson. Nightly habit. 19. The lesson of the thief, who was a sick man. Our instinctive reaction to the harmful behavior of others is often judgment and anger. When someone mistreats us, deceives us, or acts selfishly, we label them as bad, unjust, or toxic. This reaction is understandable, but it hardens our hearts, fills us with bitterness, and keeps us trapped in a cycle of conflict. A mind that is constantly in a state of judgment and opposition to the world cannot find wisdom, which arises from understanding and compassion. One of the deepest and most challenging habits of the monastic mind is learning to look beyond the harmful action and see the suffering, dukkha, that motivates it. Buddhist wisdom teaches that beings do not cause harm because they are inherently evil, but because they are suffering. They act from their own pain, their own confusion, their own ignorance. A person's anger is the cry of their own pain. Another's arrogance is the mask of their own insecurity. A third person's selfishness is the reflection of their own fear of lack. There's a story told of a monastery that was repeatedly robbed by the same man from a neighboring village. Each time the younger monks became angrier, demanding that the thief be captured and severely punished. The abbot, an old, wise master, always calmed them. One night, they finally caught the thief red-handed. While the young monks wanted to tie him up and take him to the authorities, the abbot approached the trembling man, covered him with a robe, and offered him a bowl of warm tea. He turned to his disciples and said, "This man is not a thief. He is suffering from a serious illness, an illness called desperate poverty. We do not punish the sick, we heal them." The abbot then found a way to help the man get work, curing the illness that was the root of the crime. This habit of seeing the suffering behind the action does not mean tolerating harmful behavior. It means changing our internal response to it. Instead of reacting with the fire of anger, we can respond with the refreshing water of compassion. Compassion, karuna, is not pity. It is the wisdom that understands that the person who hurts us is, first and foremost, hurting themselves, chained to their own suffering. This perception frees us from the weight of hatred and allows us to act from a place of clarity and strength, not blind reactivity. As you fall asleep, practice this compassionate gaze. Carefully bring to mind someone who has hurt you. Feel the pain of the action. Now, try to look beyond the action, to the person. Try to imagine the suffering, fear, or confusion that might be in their heart, which led them to act that way. You don't need to excuse them. Just see their wounded humanity. And then, instead of wishing them ill, see if you can offer a simple wish for healing. May you be freed from the suffering that causes you to cause suffering to others. Feel how this act of compassion softens and heals your own heart. Behind every harmful act, there is a suffering being. I choose to respond to suffering with compassion, not anger. By seeing the pain in others, I dissolve my own bitterness and find wisdom. Allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly habit. 20. The lesson of the water drop, joining the ocean. In our spiritual and self-development journey, we may reach moments of great peace, clarity, or kindness. We feel we have made progress, that we have cultivated something valuable, and the ego, subtly, can appropriate this experience. I am at peace. My practice is working. This feeling of personal accomplishment can lead us to a form of spiritual pride and a sense that our small positive actions are just that, small and personal, perhaps insignificant in the grand scheme of a world full of problems. To dissolve this last vestige of self-centeredness and give vast purpose to each small step of our journey, monks cultivate the habit of merit dedication. At the end of each practice, a meditation, an act of service, a moment of study, the positive energy generated is not kept as a personal possession. It is consciously offered, dedicated, to the awakening and well-being of all living beings, without exception. This is not just a beautiful ritual. It is a profound mental habit that transforms our practice from a self-help project into an act of universal service. Imagine that each act of kindness, each moment of presence you cultivate, is like a drop of pure water. You could collect these drops in a small bucket. Over time, you would have a bucket of clear water, which is good. But the practice of merit dedication is like taking each of these drops and offering it to the great ocean. Alone, the drop is small and limited. But by joining the ocean, it becomes part of the vastness, depth, and power of the entire ocean. It does not get lost. It is realized in something infinitely greater. Similarly, when we dedicate the positive energy of our practices, our small effort joins the vast ocean of compassion of all the wise and holy ones of the past, present, and future. This habit cures us of the feeling of futility. It gives us the certainty that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. Every thought of love, every conscious breath, every moment of patience becomes a contribution to the healing of the world. This infuses our practice with a meaning and joy that go far beyond our own small story. As you prepare for rest, let's practice this expansive habit. Bring to your awareness the energy of peace and wisdom that you may have cultivated by listening to these lessons. Feel it as a gentle light in your heart. Acknowledge and appreciate it. Now, instead of clinging to it as my peace, let's offer it. With a sincere and generous intention, formulate this wish in your heart. May any merit, any peace, any wisdom that has been generated here, tonight, not be just for me. May this energy spread like sunlight, nourishing all beings. May it relieve the suffering of those in pain, bring clarity to those who are confused, and inspire kindness in everyone's heart. Feel how your heart expands as you make this offering. Your small drop has just joined the ocean. No act of kindness is too small when offered to all. I dedicate my peace to the peace of all beings. By joining the ocean of compassion, my small effort finds infinite purpose. Carrying this lesson. Nightly habit. 21. the lesson of stopping the struggle with shadows. Most of our mental life is spent in a struggle. We struggle to get what we want and to get rid of what we don't want. We try to polish the mirror of reality so that it reflects only pleasant images. And we become frustrated when it insists on showing our flaws and life's difficulties. This constant battle to manipulate and control our experience is the main source of our exhaustion. A wise mind realizes at some point the futility of this war. It discovers that true freedom does not come from winning the battle, but from abandoning it completely. The habit that cultivates this freedom is that of clear investigation, or Dhammavikaya, one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. It is not an intellectual investigation, but the practice of looking at our experience with radical clarity and without judgment, seeing things exactly as they are. The central insight of this habit is that when we see the true nature of our mind and our problems, the struggle ceases naturally. We stop fighting because we realize that there is nothing solid to fight against. Imagine you are lost in a dark forest at night, and you are terrified. You see monsters everywhere, hear menacing sounds, and feel the presence of danger. Your instinctive reaction is to run, scream, hide, fight the shadows. This struggle only increases your fear and exhaustion. Now, imagine that instead of fighting, you decide to cultivate the wisdom of a monk. You stop, you sit, and you light a small candle. The candle is your mindfulness, your clarity. In the light of this small flame, you look around, and what do you see? You see that the terrible monster was just the trunk of a twisted tree. The scary sound was just the wind blowing through the leaves. The menacing shadows were just shadows. The light of clarity did not destroy the monsters. It revealed that they never existed in the first place. Fear dissolved, not through struggle, but through clear vision. Our anxieties, our worries, our self-criticisms are like these monsters in the dark forest. They seem very real and very dangerous. The habit of investigation is to patiently light the candle of our mindfulness and look directly at them. When we look at a thought of anxiety with clarity, what do we really see? We see a wave of energy in the body, some words in the mind, some images. We see that it is impermanent, that it arises and disappears. We see that it is not solid. By seeing it as it really is, it loses its power over us. The practice to be absorbed tonight is to light this candle. Instead of fighting against any discomfort or thought that arises, simply direct the gentle light of your attention to it. Not to analyze it, but to see it. Simply note, here is the feeling of tightness in my chest. Just see it without judgment. Here is the thought, what if? Just see it. Don't believe it. Don't fight it. Just illuminate it with your calm and clear presence. Observe how, under this serene gaze, the shadows lose their power and fear dissolves into clarity. Wisdom is not in fighting the shadows, but in lighting the light. With the flame of mindfulness, I illuminate my experience. By seeing things as they really are, I free myself from fear and find peace, allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly Habit 22. The fine lesson of the burden of carrying an I. Of all the habits we cultivate, the most ingrained and often the most invisible is the habit of believing in a solid, separate, and continuous I. We spend every second of our lives protecting, promoting, and worrying about this I. It is the I that feels offended, the I that needs to succeed, the I that fears death. Maintaining this ego construct with all its defenses and desires is the most tiring work in the world. It is the fundamental burden that underlies all our anxiety and suffering. Ultimate wisdom points to the liberation from this burden. The deepest monastic habit is the contemplation of anatta, or not self. This isn't a philosophical concept to be believed, but a reality to be experienced. It's the practice of looking into our own experience and seeing that we cannot find a fixed owner, a CEO in charge. What we find is a flow of impersonal processes. The body breathes by itself. Sounds are heard without a listener needing to create them. Thoughts arise and disappear in consciousness, often without our permission. The wisdom of anatta is the recognition that we are a process, not a thing, a river, not a statue, Releasing the burden of carrying a solid self is the deepest healing. When there's no self to be defended, who can be insulted? When there's no self to worry about the future, what is anxiety? When there's no fixed self to cling to, what is the fear of loss? This isn't annihilation, but expansion. We cease to be a frightened little pronoun and become the very verb of life, flowing freely with reality. The peace that arises from this realization is immense, for the root cause of tension, the contraction of the ego, has been relaxed. The practice to absorb tonight is one of gentle deconstruction. It's an invitation to relax the grip of self-identification. Bring your attention to the sensations in your body. Feel the weight, the warmth, the pulse, and ask softly, is there a permanent self in these sensations? Or are they just sensations, changing every moment? Don't answer with your head. Just feel. Now observe a thought that floats into your mind. Ask, is there a solid self behind this thought? A thinker? Or does the thought just think itself? Continue this gentle inquiry. Feel your breath. Is it you that is breathing? Or does the breath simply happen, a natural process of which you are the witness? With each question, feel the burden of being someone becoming a little lighter. Feel the identity becoming more transparent. You are not getting rid of yourself. You are freeing yourself from the limited idea of yourself. What remains when the controlling self relaxes is a spacious awareness, an effortless peace, and the freedom to simply be. The greatest burden is the belief in a separate self. Tonight, I relax my grip on this identity. By seeing the fluid and the impersonal nature of my experience, I release the burden and find a light, boundless peace. Nightly Habit 23. The lesson of wisdom, found in the question, our modern society values answers. From an early age, we're trained to know, to have a formed opinion, to present solutions. Uncertainty is often seen as weakness. This pressure to have all the answers creates a tense and rigid mind. We cling to our beliefs and knowledge as a form of security and close the door to new possibilities. When confronted with life's great mysteries, this knowing mind panics, unable to find a satisfactory answer in its limited files, resulting in anxiety and confusion. The habit a monk cultivates to dissolve this rigidity is that of the not knowing mind. This isn't a state of ignorance, but of profound wisdom. It's the humility to acknowledge the limits of our intellect and the courage to rest in the vastness of the question, instead of settling for a small, premature answer. A mind full of answers is like a sealed container. Nothing new can enter. A mind that rests in the question is an open portal, a channel through which intuition and a deeper wisdom can flow. True insight is born not from certainty, but from curiosity. Imagine the mind as a vast night sky. Answers and certainties are like the constellations we know, the patterns we draw and cling to. The not knowing mind is the habit of turning our gaze away from the familiar constellations, and instead, resting our gaze on the dark, mysterious immensity that exists between them. It is in this seemingly empty space that new stars are born and the true vastness of the cosmos is revealed. Wisdom isn't in the small patterns we already know, but in our ability to feel comfortable with the vast mystery that contains them. As you relax, allow your mind to absorb the freedom of this habit. Release the pressure of having to understand everything. Healing and wisdom often appear, not when we find the right answer, but when we fall in love with the question. The practice to absorb is that of resting in the question. Choose one of the great questions of your heart. It could be, how can I live with more peace? What is my true purpose? Or simply, who am I? Now, instead of letting your rational mind race to find an answer, treat the question like a soft piece of music or a silent mantra. Just repeat the question in your heart, gently. Feel its vibration. Feel the space it opens in your mind. There's nothing to be solved now. There's only the openness, the curiosity, the wonder. Notice how the need for an immediate answer dissolves, and in its place a feeling of spacious peace arises. It is in this peace, in this openness, that the true answers, those that come from the heart and not the head, can finally emerge in their own time. Answers close the mind, questions open it, I release the need to have all the certainties. I rest in the spacious wisdom of the question and open myself to the mystery of life. Breathing in this lesson. Nightly habit. 24. The lesson of the sandcastle by the sea. One of the main sources of our suffering is our unconscious struggle against the fundamental nature of reality. We desperately cling to the things we love, our youth, our relationships, our moments of happiness, our possessions, as if we could make them last forever. And we resist with all our might the things we don't want: illness, loss, old age. This battle against the flow of life, this attempt to solidify what is fluid, keeps us in a constant state of anxiety and inevitably disappointment. The habit a monk cultivates to find peace amidst this flow is the continuous contemplation of impermanence, or anicca. This isn't a pessimistic teaching, but profoundly realistic and liberating. It's the recognition that everything in the conditioned universe, without exception, is in a state of flux. Everything that arises will eventually cease. Joy comes and goes. Sadness comes and goes. Health comes and goes. The universe itself is in constant expansion and change. Wisdom isn't in trying to stop the river, but in learning to navigate its waters with grace and lightness. Imagine you spend an entire day on the beach building the most beautiful and intricate sandcastle. You dedicate yourself to every tower, every wall, every detail. It's a masterpiece, and for a time, you admire it. But you, as a wise person, know you built your castle by the sea. You know that the tide will inevitably rise. A foolish person, attached to their castle, would panic. They would try to build walls to hold back the ocean, shout at the waves, and finally, fall into despair when their creation is inevitably undone. The wise person, however, enjoyed the process of creation. They appreciate the beauty of their castle while it lasts, and when the tide rises, they watch with serene, calm, perhaps even with a smile as the waves gently dissolve the towers and walls, returning the sand to its original state. They don't suffer, because they never forgot the impermanent nature of the sandcastle. Our lives, our bodies, our relationships, our emotions, these are all sandcastles. The habit of contemplating impermanence allows us to appreciate them more deeply while they are here, precisely because we know they won't last forever. And it prepares us to let them go with more peace and less pain when the tide of change arrives. As you rest, allow the liberating truth of this habit to bathe you. The practice to absorb is one of gentle contemplation. Think of a sound you heard a minute ago. Where is it now? It's gone. Think of a feeling you had this morning. Where is it now? It has transformed. Think of your own body. Is it the same as when you were a child? It's constantly changing. Feel this universal flow. Feel how everything, including your worries and your pains, is in this same current. They too shall pass. As you relax in this truth, the fear of clinging and the fear of losing begin to dissolve. Everything is like a sandcastle, beautiful and fleeting. I appreciate the beauty of each moment without clinging to it. By accepting the truth of impermanence, I find freedom and peace in the flow of life. Allowing this lesson to settle. Nightly habit. 25. The lesson of the silent center of the cyclone. Life is full of storms, small and large. An unexpected argument, a problem at work, a health crisis, the world news. Our habitual reaction to these storms is to be swept away by them. Our mind enters a whirlwind of reactivity. We become the very anxiety, the very anger, the very fear. We are like a small boat without an anchor, violently tossed by the waves, completely at the mercy of the weather. This lack of a center, of an inner safe harbor, is what leaves us exhausted and prevents us from acting wisely when we need it most. The habit a monk cultivates to navigate these storms is that of equanimity, or upekkha. Equanimity is the apex of heart practices and the fruit of profound wisdom. It's the ability to remain in a state of spacious and unshakable inner balance, no matter what is happening on the outside or the inside. It's not coldness or indifference. The equanimous heart still feels, still cares deeply, but it's not hijacked by the experience. It maintains its calm, its clarity, and its strength, allowing for a wise and compassionate response instead of a blind reaction. Imagine a massive cyclone. At its edges, the winds are of destructive violence, spinning at hundreds of kilometers per hour. There is chaos, destruction, and a deafening roar. But at the exact center of the cyclone, in its eye, there is a space of perfect calm. The sky is blue, the air is still, there is a profound silence. The wisdom of equanimity is the habit of learning to find and rest in the eye of our own inner cyclone. Our thoughts, our emotions, the events of life, these are the storm at the edges. But at the center of our consciousness, there is a place of stillness that is never touched by the turbulence. Learning to access this center is what gives us true resilience. The storm may continue to roar, but we are no longer lost in it. We are anchored in our center of peace, watching the storm pass with clarity and without fear. It is from this place of stability that we can make the best decisions and offer the most healing presence to those around us. As you relax deeply, let's practice finding this silent center. Become aware of the current weather of your mind. Are there winds of thought, clouds of emotion? Just notice, without judgment. Now, instead of focusing on the weather, shift your attention to the consciousness that is aware of the weather. Feel the quality of this consciousness. Is it agitated, or is it silent, just observing? Rest your attention on this silent observer. This is your eye of the cyclone. Feel yourself resting in this center of stillness. Thoughts may swirl on the periphery, sensations may change, but here, in the center, there is only peace. Feel the strength and stability of this place. Know that this center is always available to you, no matter how strong the storm. It is your unshakable refuge, your home of silent wisdom. The storm of life roars on the periphery, but at my center there is peace. I cultivate the habit of resting in the silent eye of my consciousness. Unshakable and serene, I find the wisdom to navigate any weather. Carrying this lesson. Nightly habit. 26. The lesson of the treasure beneath our feet. We live in a world that trains us to focus on flaws. We look at others and ourselves and see what is wrong, what is missing, what needs to be fixed. This critical mind keeps us in a state of dissatisfaction and judgment. When we look at someone who acts in a harmful way, we label them as bad. When we ourselves make a mistake, we label ourselves as failures. This superficial view blinds us to the deeper and more beautiful truth of existence and prevents us from accessing the wisdom of universal compassion. One of the most transformative habits of the monastic mind is learning to see the Buddha nature, or Tathagatagarbha, in all beings. This teaching is one of the most precious jewels of Buddhism. It tells us that, beneath all, the layers of conditioning, wounds, ignorance, and harmful behavior, every living being without exception possesses a fundamental nature that is pure, wise, and perfectly good. It's like a treasure of gold and diamonds, of incalculable value, that exists within each of us. There's a famous parable about a very poor man who lived in a miserable hut. He spent his days begging for food, lamenting his poverty, and sleeping on a straw pallet on the dirt floor. He lived and died in misery, completely unaware that just a few inches below the ground where he slept lay a vast treasure of gold, left by his ancestors. He possessed the source of all the wealth he could desire, but his ignorance prevented him from accessing it. This teaching tells us that we are all like this beggar, and more importantly, all the people we meet, especially the difficult ones, are too. Their actions based on anger, fear, and confusion are the dirt on the surface. But beneath that dirt, there exists the same treasure of goodness and wisdom that exists in us. The habit of a wise monk is to train their mind to stop reacting to the dirt and begin to learn to see the treasure. This vision changes everything. Judgment transforms into compassion. Conflict transforms into a desire to help another person remove their own dirt so that they too can discover their treasure. As you lie down to sleep, practice this golden-eyed gaze. Bring to mind the image of someone with whom you struggle. Instead of focusing on their actions or words that bother you, try to look beyond. Use the eyes of wisdom and imagine that deep within that person's heart, behind all their defenses and hurts, there exists a pure, bright, golden light, their Buddha nature. You don't need to like their personality, but you can acknowledge their essence. Now do the same for yourself. Look beyond your own flaws, your self-criticisms, and recognize the same treasure of gold shining in your own heart. Beneath the surface dirt, every being possesses a treasure trove of goodness. I cultivate the habit of seeing the gold in everyone, including myself. This vision dissolves judgment and fills me with the wisdom of compassion, letting this lesson settle. Nightly Lesson 27. The lesson of being the space itself. We arrive at the final lesson on the habits of mind. We have learned to observe, to cultivate, to forgive, to investigate. We have learned to be the sky that holds the clouds, the ocean that contains the waves, the silent center of the cyclone. And the final wisdom, the habit that transcends all others, is simply to be. It is the habit of resting in the nature of consciousness itself, which is the source and container of all other practices. It is the return to our most fundamental state. What is consciousness? We cannot define it, but we can feel it. It is the quality of knowing, of being aware, that is present in every moment of our experience. It is what knows that we are breathing, what knows that we are thinking, what knows that we are feeling. All the objects of our experience, thoughts, feelings, sensations, constantly change, but the consciousness that knows them, in its essence, does not change. It is stable, silent, and ever-present. The final habit of a contemplative master is to shift their identity from the objects of consciousness to consciousness itself. Instead of identifying with thoughts, they rest as the space in which thoughts occur. Instead of identifying with emotions, they rest as the stillness that perceives them. This is ultimate freedom, for consciousness itself is never wounded, never disturbed, never born, and never dies. It is the perfect refuge. Imagine your consciousness is the very space of your room. Thoughts, sounds, bodily sensations are like the furniture and objects within the room. You could spend your whole life identifying with the furniture, worrying if it's tidy, if it's pretty, if it's broken. Or you can cultivate the habit of remembering that you are the space of the room itself. The space allows all the furniture to exist. It doesn't care if the furniture is beautiful or ugly. It isn't damaged if a piece of furniture breaks. It is by nature open, welcoming, and at peace. As you prepare for sleep, the practice to absorb is that of becoming this space. Let go of all other focuses. Let go of attention on the breath. Let go of visualizations. Let go of mantras. Let go of the practitioner, and simply rest as the awareness that is aware. There is nothing to be done. There is nowhere to go. Wisdom is not something to be attained. It is what you are when you stop trying to attain anything. Feel the quality of this awareness. Is it silent? Is it spacious? Is it peaceful? Simply rest in it. If a thought arises, see it as a bird flying through the vast sky of your awareness. You are the sky, not the bird. If a sensation arises, see it as a piece of furniture in the space of your room. You are the space, not the furniture. This is the habit of non-habit, the practice of non-practice. It is the ultimate rest, in your true nature. I am not the objects in my mind. I am the space that contains them. I stop doing and simply am. By resting as awareness itself, I find the wisdom and peace that have always been here. Nightly Lesson 23. The wisdom found in the question. Our modern society values answers. We are trained from an early age to know, to have a formed opinion, to present solutions. Uncertainty is often seen as a weakness. This pressure to have all the answers creates a tense and rigid mind. We cling to our beliefs and knowledge as a form of security and close the door to new possibilities. When confronted with life's great mysteries, this mind that knows panics as it cannot find a satisfactory answer in its limited files, resulting in anxiety and confusion. The habit a monk cultivates to dissolve this rigidity is that of the not knowing mind. This is not a state of ignorance, but of profound wisdom. It is the humility to acknowledge the limits of our intellect and the courage to rest in the vastness of the question instead of settling for a small and premature answer. A mind full of answers is like a sealed container. Nothing new can enter. A mind that rests in the question is an open portal, a channel through which intuition, and a deeper wisdom can flow. True insight is born not from certainty, but from curiosity. Imagine the mind as a vast night sky. Answers and certainties are like the constellations we know, the patterns we draw and cling to. The not knowing mind is the habit of turning our gaze away from the familiar constellations and instead resting our gaze on the dark and mysterious immensity that exists between them. It is in this seemingly empty space that new stars are born and the true vastness of the cosmos is revealed. Wisdom is not in the small patterns we already know, but in our ability to feel comfortable with the vast mystery that contains them. As you relax, allow your mind to absorb the freedom of this habit. Let go of the pressure to understand everything. Healing and wisdom often appear not when we find the right answer, but when we fall in love with the question. The practice to absorb is that of resting in the question. Choose one of the great questions of your heart. It could be, how can I live with more peace? What is my true purpose? Or simply, who am I? Now, instead of letting your rational mind race to find an answer, treat the question like a soft piece of music or a silent mantra. Just repeat the question in your heart, gently. Feel its vibration. Feel the space it opens in your mind. There is nothing to be resolved now. There is only the openness, the curiosity, the wonder. Notice how the need for an immediate answer dissolves, and in its place, a sense of spacious peace arises. It is in this peace, in this openness, that the true answers, the ones that come from the heart and not the head, can finally emerge in their own time. Answers close the mind, questions open it. I release the need to have all the certainties. I rest in the spacious wisdom of the question and open myself to life's mystery. Breathing in this lesson, nightly lesson 24, the lesson of the sandcastle by the sea. One of the main sources of our suffering is our unconscious struggle against the fundamental nature of reality. We desperately cling to the things we love, our youth, our relationships, our moments of happiness, our possessions, as if we could make them last forever. And we resist with all our might the things we don't want: illness, loss, old age. This battle against the flow of life, this attempt to solidify what is fluid, keeps us in a constant state of anxiety and, inevitably, disappointment. The habit a monk cultivates to find peace amidst this flow is the continuous contemplation of impermanence, or anicca. This is not a pessimistic teaching, but a profoundly realistic and liberating one. It is the recognition that everything in the conditioned universe, without exception, is in a state of flux. Everything that arises will eventually cease. Joy comes and goes. Sadness comes and goes. Health comes and goes. The universe itself is in constant expansion and change. Wisdom is not in trying to stop the river, but in learning to navigate its waters with grace and lightness. Imagine you spend a whole day on the beach, building the most beautiful and intricate sandcastle. You dedicate yourself to every tower, every wall, every detail. It's a masterpiece, and for a while, you admire it. But you, as a wise person, know you built your castle by the sea. You know that the tide inevitably will rise. A foolish person, attached to their castle, would panic. They would try to build walls to hold back the ocean, shout at the waves, and finally, fall into despair when their creation is inevitably undone. The wise person, however, enjoyed the process of creation. They appreciate the beauty of their castle while it lasts. And when the tide rises, they watch with serene calm, perhaps even with a smile, as the waves gently dissolve the towers and walls, returning the sand to its original state. They don't suffer because they never forgot the impermanent nature of the sandcastle. Our lives, our bodies, our relationships, our emotions, these are all sandcastles. The habit of contemplating impermanence allows us to appreciate them more deeply while they are here, precisely because we know they won't last forever, and it prepares us to let them go with more peace and less pain when the tide of change arrives. As you rest, allow the liberating truth of this habit to wash over you. The practice to absorb is one of gentle contemplation. Think of a sound you heard a minute ago. Where is it now? It's gone. Think of a feeling you had this morning. Where is it now? It's transformed. Think of your own body. Is it the same as when you were a child? It's constantly changing. Feel this universal flow. Feel how everything, including your worries and your pains, is in this same current. They too shall pass. As you relax in this truth, the fear of clinging and the fear of losing begin to dissolve. Everything is like a sandcastle, beautiful and transient. I appreciate the beauty of each moment without clinging to it. By accepting the truth of impermanence, I find freedom and peace in the flow of life. Letting this lesson settle. Nightly Lesson 25. The lesson of the silent center of the cyclone life is full of storms, small and large, an unexpected argument, a problem at work, a health crisis, the news of the world. Our habitual reaction to these storms is to be swept away by them. Our minds enter a whirlwind of reactivity. We become the very anxiety, the very anger, the very fear. We are like a small boat without an anchor, violently tossed by the waves, completely at the mercy of the weather. This lack of a center, of an inner safe harbor, is what leaves us exhausted and prevents us from acting wisely when we need it most. The habit a monk cultivates to navigate these storms is that of equanimity, or upekkha. Equanimity is the apex of heart, practices, and the fruit of profound wisdom. It is the ability to remain in a state of spacious and unshakable inner balance, no matter what is happening on the outside or the inside. It is not coldness or indifference. The equanimous heart still feels, still cares deeply, but it is not hijacked by the experience. It maintains its calm, its clarity, and its strength, allowing for a wise and compassionate response instead of a blind reaction. Imagine a massive cyclone. At its edges, the winds are of destructive violence, spinning at hundreds of miles per hour. There is chaos, destruction, and a deafening roar. But at the exact center of the cyclone, in its eye, there is a space of perfect calm. The sky is blue, the air is still, there is a profound silence. The wisdom of equanimity is the habit of learning to find and rest in the eye of our own inner cyclone. Our thoughts, our emotions, the events of life, these are the storm at the edges, but at the center of our awareness, there is a place of stillness that is never touched by the turbulence. Learning to access this center is what gives us true resilience. The storm may continue to roar, but we are no longer lost in it. We are anchored in our center of peace, watching the storm pass with clarity and without fear. It is from this place of stability that we can make the best decisions and offer the most healing presence to those around us. As you relax deeply, let's practice finding this silent center. Become aware of the current weather of your mind. Are there winds of thought, clouds of emotion? Just notice, without judgment. Now, instead of focusing on the weather, shift your attention to the awareness that is aware of the weather. Feel the quality of that awareness. Is it agitated, or is it silent, just observing? Rest your attention on this silent observer. This is your eye of the cyclone. Feel yourself resting in this center of stillness. Thoughts may swirl on the periphery. Sensations may change. But here, in the center, there is only peace. Feel the strength and stability of this place. Know that this center is always available to you, no matter how strong the storm. It is your unshakable refuge, your home of silent wisdom. The storm of life roars on the periphery, but at my center, there is peace. I cultivate the habit of resting in the silent eye of my awareness. Unshakable and serene, I find the wisdom to navigate any weather. Carrying this lesson, Nightly Lesson 26. The lesson of the treasure beneath our feet. We live in a world that trains us to focus on flaws. We look at others and at ourselves and see what is wrong, what is missing, what needs to be fixed. This critical mind keeps us in a state of dissatisfaction and judgment. When we look at someone who acts in a harmful way, we label them as bad. When we ourselves make a mistake, we label ourselves as failures. This superficial vision blinds us to the deeper and more beautiful truth of existence and prevents us from accessing the wisdom of universal compassion. One of the most transformative habits of the monastic mind is learning to see the Buddha nature, or Tathagatagarbha, in all beings. This teaching is one of Buddhism's most precious jewels. It tells us that beneath all layers of conditioning, wounds, ignorance, and harmful behavior, every living being, without exception, possesses a fundamental nature that is pure, wise, and perfectly good. It's like a treasure chest of gold and diamonds, of incalculable value, existing within each of us. There's a famous parable about a very poor man who lived in a wretched shack in rural Appalachia. He spent his days begging for food, lamenting his poverty, and sleeping on a straw pallet on the dirt floor. He lived and died in misery, completely unaware that just inches beneath the ground where he slept lay a vast treasure of gold left by his ancestors. He possessed the source of all the wealth he could desire, but his ignorance prevented him from accessing it. This teaching tells us we are all like this beggar, and more importantly, all the people we meet, especially the difficult ones, are too. Their actions, rooted in anger, fear, and confusion, are the dirt on the surface. But beneath that dirt exists the same treasure of goodness and wisdom that exists within us. The habit of a wise monk is to train their mind to stop reacting to the dirt and begin learning to see the treasure. This vision changes everything. Judgment transforms into compassion. Conflict transforms into a desire to help the other person remove their own dirt so they too can discover their treasure. As you lie down to sleep, practice this gold-seeing gaze. Bring to mind the image of someone with whom you have difficulty. Instead of focusing on their actions or words that bother you, try to look beyond, use the eyes of wisdom, and imagine that deep within that person's heart, behind all their defenses and pain, there is a golden light, pure and brilliant, their Buddhic nature. You don't need to like their personality, but you can acknowledge their essence. Now do the same for yourself. Look beyond your own flaws, your self-criticisms, and recognize the same golden treasure shining in your own heart. Beneath the surface dirt, every being possesses a treasure of goodness. I cultivate the habit of seeing the gold in everyone, including myself. This vision dissolves judgment and fills me with the wisdom of compassion, allowing this lesson to settle. Night Lesson 27. The lesson of being the space itself. We arrive at the final lesson on the habits of the mind. We have learned to observe, to cultivate, to forgive, to investigate. We have learned to be the sky that welcomes the clouds, the ocean that contains the waves, the silent center of the cyclone, and the final wisdom, the habit that transcends all others, is simply to be. It is the habit of resting in the nature of consciousness itself, which is the source and container of all other practices. It is the return to our most fundamental state. What is consciousness? We cannot define it, but we can feel it. It is the quality of knowing, of being aware, present in every moment of our experience. It is what knows we are breathing, what knows we are thinking, what knows we are feeling, all the objects of our experience. Thoughts, feelings, sensations constantly change, but the consciousness that knows them in its essence does not change. It is stable, silent, and ever-present. The final habit of a contemplative master is to shift their identity from the objects of consciousness to consciousness itself. Instead of identifying with thoughts, they rest as the space in which thoughts occur. Instead of identifying with emotions, they rest as the stillness that perceives them. This is ultimate freedom, for consciousness itself is never wounded, never disturbed, never born, and never dies. It is the perfect refuge. Imagine your consciousness is the very space of your bedroom. Thoughts, sounds, bodily sensations are like the furniture and objects within the room. You can spend your whole life identifying with the furniture, worrying if it's tidy, if it's pretty, if it's broken. Or you can cultivate the habit of remembering that you are the space of the room itself. The space allows all the furniture to exist. It doesn't care if the furniture is beautiful or ugly. It is not damaged if a piece of furniture breaks. It is, by nature, open, welcoming, and at peace. As you prepare for sleep, the practice to be absorbed is to become this space. Let go of all other focuses. Let go of attention on the breath. Let go of visualizations. Let go of mantras. Let go of the practitioner, and simply rest as the consciousness that is aware. There is nothing to be done. There is nowhere to go. Wisdom is not something to be achieved. It is what you are when you stop trying to achieve anything. Feel the quality of this consciousness. Is it silent? Is it spacious? Is it peaceful? Just rest in it. If a thought passes, See it as a bird flying across the vast sky of your consciousness. You are the sky, not the bird. If a sensation arises, see it as a piece of furniture in the space of your room. You are the space, not the furniture. This is the habit of non-habit, the practice of non-practice. It is the final rest in your true nature. I am not the objects in my mind. I am the space that contains them. I stop doing and simply am. By resting as consciousness itself, I find the wisdom and peace that have always been here. Night Lesson 28. The lesson of the boat that leaves a clean. Wake wisdom is not merely an inner state of being. It manifests and strengthens itself through our actions in the world. A mind may be calm in meditation, but if our actions during the day create disharmony, conflict and harm, that peace will be fragile and fleeting. At night, our consciousness rests upon the bed of our daily actions. If the bed is one of integrity and kindness, sleep is deep and tranquil. If the bed is one of harmful actions and regrets, sleep will be restless and shallow. The wisdom of a monk is intrinsically linked to their way of life. The habit of wise action, or samakamanta, is the practice of aligning our behavior with our intention to cultivate peace and wisdom. Traditionally, this is based on three fundamental principles: abstaining from harming living beings, abstaining from taking what is not given, and abstaining from improper sexual conduct. More broadly, it is the habit of acting with non-violence, honesty, and respect in all our relationships. These are not moral rules imposed from the outside, but wise guidelines for a happy life. They are the recognition that when we cause suffering to others, the first person to suffer is ourselves, through the agitation in our own minds. Imagine your life is a boat sailing across a crystal-clear lake. Your actions are the engine or the oars. Actions based on greed, anger, or confusion are like a noisy and polluting engine. They may get you somewhere quickly, but they violently agitate the water, create a deafening noise, and leave a dirty trail of oil on the surface. Wise actions, based on kindness, clarity, and simplicity, are like wooden oars that dip into the water silently. They move the boat with grace and efficiency, leaving the water calm and a clean wake in their path. The habit of wise action is to learn to be a silent rower, navigating life by creating minimal disturbance and maximum peace. As you rest, allow your mind to absorb the beauty of a life lived with integrity. The practice to be absorbed is one of reflection and intention. Let your consciousness look back at the wake your boat has left in the waters of the past day. Observe, without judgment, the moments when your oars were silent and the moments when your engine was noisy. Just note, with the intention to learn. Recognize that the peace you seek tonight is directly related to the quality of that wake. Now, with a clear and gentle intention, prepare for tomorrow's journey. Formulate this wish in your heart. Tomorrow, may my actions be like silent oars. May I move through the world with kindness and respect. May the wake I leave in the lives of others and in my own mind be a wake of peace. Feel how this intention to live more wisely already brings a deep sense of calm and dignity to your being. You are aligning yourself with your own noblest nature. Wisdom expresses itself in my actions. I cultivate the habit of acting with kindness, honesty,